It's October 6, 2022. 6.5 million people are on YouTube tuning into a special Nintendo Direct hosted by Shigeru Miyamoto, creator of Mario. And it's at this Direct where he announces to the world that the Super Mario Bros. Movie teaser was finally ready for Mario fans around the world to see. But first,
man, I spent hours of my life stomping Koopas.
Finally, we'd get a glimpse of everyone's favorite plumbers properly depicted on the big screen. But of course, before we got to the film that grossed over $1 billion at the box office and everyone was singing that damn Peaches song, there was years of failure, preparation, and hard work. Over 30 years to be exact. I figured if I covered the whole Sonic trilogy, I should talk about the Mario movie as well and give it its flowers. It did gross $1 billion at the box office. So before I get back to talking about actual games, let's do a deep dive into the Mario movie and see how Nintendo was successful at the theaters on their second try.
We're the Mario Brothers, and plumbing's a game. We're not like the others who get all the fame.
We have to head back to the 1980s, where Super Mario Bros. Was a household name. Nintendo and its gaming console, the Nintendo Entertainment System, a smash hit among children around the world. And with any success comes thirsty producers trying to make a film out of it. And many of them were attempting to purchase the rights to a Mario movie, but they were initially unsuccessful. Despite this, Mario's success extended to the TV, with the Super Mario Bros. Super Show by DiC Entertainment, depicting animated versions of Mario and Luigi going through bite-sized adventures in the Mushroom Kingdom, while live-action versions of themselves went through wacky hijinks at their Brooklyn workshop in between cartoons. Starring Lou Albano as Mario and Danny Wells as Luigi, the show was quite popular, and while DiC did manage to get the rights to make a film from the series, it was never produced. Additionally, there was a whole animated film created in 1986 that was a Japan exclusive, translating to Super Mario Bros. Princess Peach Rescue Operation, which technically counts as Mario's very first movie, and this animation holds up rather well to this day. Taking a slightly different approach, with Peach coming out of a television set to recruit Mario and Luigi to help save the Mushroom Kingdom from Bowser. I do have a video that goes into way more detail about this movie, as well as a bunch of other Japanese Mario animations, so feel free to check that out if you want to learn more. But by the early 90s, more attempts were made to bring Mario to the big screen. For example, actor Dustin Hoffman pitched a film in 1990 with Danny DeVito as Luigi, and acclaimed director Barry Levinson was attached to the film as well, set to direct. But unfortunately, DeVito's scheduling conflicts ended the project before it could even begin. Enter producer Roland Jaffe, who wanted to take on the challenge of a live-action adaptation of Mario, which led him to head to Nintendo of America's office to meet the president at the time, Minoru Arakawa, who liked his initial pitch of the script, and with his approval, Jaffe traveled to Japan to meet Nintendo's CEO at the time, Hiroshi Yamauchi, and the rest was history. Jaffe secured the contract for a film that would go down in history as the movie that stopped Nintendo from making more movies for 26 years. Super Mario Bros., starring Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo. A movie that definitely took some creative liberties on the original work by throwing the Mario Brothers into a dystopian setting in the parallel version of Manhattan, called Dino-Hattan. Dino-Hattan? Manhattan? The plot has the brothers pursuing Daisy, who turns out to be the princess of Dino-Hattan, but she gets kidnapped from their world and brought back to Dino-Hattan to help King Koopa, played by Dennis Hopper, merge the two realms to have him reign as king. Mario and Luigi are depicted just as two normal plumbers who do their best to survive in Dino-Hattan, save Daisy, and stop King Koopa. This is another movie I've also covered in much more detail in another video, and it's a very fascinating story of two very inexperienced directors, mismanagement, angry actors, near-death experiences, and bad timing by coming out a month before Jurassic Park. But I bring it up because I wasn't joking. This movie single-handedly turned Nintendo off from touching another movie for 26 years. Nintendo of America president Reggie Fils-Aimé said in a 2017 interview, quote, "It left a really bad taste in the mouth of our developers. I wasn't with the company at that time, but as I joined, I heard some of the horror stories. It was a situation where, unfortunately, we did not have a hands-on role." So understandably, they became much more protective of their intellectual property from that moment on. Many years passed, with Nintendo reaching tremendous new heights in the video game market with the release of the Nintendo Wii. Their intellectual properties standing the test of time from generation to generation. But Shigeru Miyamoto was looking for ways for Nintendo franchises to have more staying power outside of just games. He credits the inspiration to try a Mario movie again because of the Wii and the Wii U's Virtual Console, a catalog of Nintendo's classic games that could be bought individually from their online shop for a small fee. And it still upsets me that we had to start all over with the Nintendo Switch and we get drip-fed these games instead, but that's not what this video is about. Regardless, the idea that players could still keep coming back to these Nintendo classics no matter the platform inspired him to try his hand at bringing Mario back to the theaters, a way to keep the franchise going and even more accessible. He said, quote, "Our assets are a software, and even 30 years on, they're still active. However, unfortunately, when the original hardware compatible with the software is gone, we have no choice but to port it onto new hardware. After experiencing this process of bringing older software onto new hardware many times, I began to consider that our content business would be able to develop even further if we were able to combine our long-beloved software with that of video assets and utilize them together for extended periods." So we know these discussions began at least sometime before 2014, with emails leaked from producers in that major hack of Sony Pictures that year. Spider-Man producer Avi Arad was documented to have been attempting to secure rights to bring Mario to the big screen, visiting Nintendo in Japan to make the pitch, with Sony Pictures Animation President of Production Michelle Raimo Koyate making the suggestion to develop a Mario project alongside Genndy Tartakovsky, known for creating Dexter's Laboratory, Samurai Jack, and Hotel Transylvania. This deal ended up falling apart, with Arad denying that a deal was ever made with Nintendo after the emails were leaked. So maybe he was here embellishing details to impress his boss at the time, but either way, we got Into the Spider-Verse from them instead, so I guess no real harm done here. Fast forward to 2016, and the Pokemon Company managed to secure a deal with Legendary Pictures to adapt one of their recent 3DS games, Detective Pikachu. A game that details the story of a talking Pikachu who is a great detective, partnering with a boy named Tim Goodman to solve mysteries. The film, released in 2019, was a loose adaptation of this, with Ryan Reynolds starring as the titular Detective Pikachu. While Nintendo owns a large piece of the Pokemon Company, Miyamoto wasn't involved directly with Detective Pikachu's development, but you know he had a careful eye on how the market would receive it. But at that time, Miyamoto was kicking off a huge partnership with Universal Destinations and Experiences, planning another extension of Nintendo's popular game franchises, Super Nintendo World. An amusement park that would feature Nintendo-themed worlds and attractions that would be housed in the Universal Studios amusement parks. Through his extensive work in park planning with Universal, Miyamoto would cross paths with Chris Meledandri, founder and CEO of Illumination Animation, the studio behind the Despicable Me franchise, and they quickly began to trust one another. Miyamoto seeing that Meledandri had a very similar creative process to his own. So with that, the idea for a Mario movie was born, with reports emerging in 2017 that Nintendo joined hands with Universal and Illumination for an animated Mario project. And with Detective Pikachu crushing it at the box office just 2 years later, crossing $450 million, and with the first Sonic film soon to follow in 2020, the road was paved for video game movies to take the stage. This time, Nintendo would be much more involved than before, with Miyamoto producing the film alongside Chris Meledandri, their eyes set on a 2022 release date. The directors would be Aaron Horvath and Michael Jelenic, creators of Cartoon Network's only show, Teen Titans Go.
Yeah, and especially to come out of the pandemic. This is a movie that was made in the pandemic. We were all making it inside our homes. We were separated. Somehow the crew was able to pull off the impossible.
The film was written by a guy named Matthew Fogel, and I found it strange that he had no Wikipedia page for me to confirm his history. And imagine my surprise when I found out he wrote only 4 other movies before the Mario Brothers movie, including Big Mama's House, Like Father, Like Son. I have to wonder who he knew to eventually get signed on to the Lego Movie sequel. But all that aside, Jelenic and Horvath wanted to make a movie that was faithful to the games, because Miyamoto was pointing a gun to their heads, no doubt. Jokes aside, they wanted to take a different approach from their usual Teen Titans Go slapstick, something much more cinematic in nature. The movie would depict an origin story for the Mario Brothers, leaning into their classic backstories of being Italian plumbers from Brooklyn, who would somehow stumble into the fantastical Mushroom Kingdom. But instead of saving the princess, Mario would go on an adventure to save his dear brother, Luigi. Horvath noted that the story of Mario saving Princess Peach was too straightforward. He said, quote, "So Luigi, who's a famously nervous, anxious character, finds himself in the worst possible predicament, having to survive interrogations with Bowser and make it through that gauntlet. And in his quest to save Luigi from Bowser's clutches, Mario would meet Peach, a somewhat different depiction from her usual graceful demeanor within the games. She's the monarch who leads this kingdom of hapless, adorable toads. We were thinking how strong that person would need to be to protect those people. All that informed the idea for Peach's character in our movie." So drawing inspiration from Super Mario 3D World, where Peach is fully playable, this version of her caused a minor uproar. But much like a Goomba trying to challenge Mario, those critics quickly got stomped out. With Bowser on the other hand, they aim to strike a balance between scary, funny, and emotionally vulnerable. All character traits we've seen for Bowser over the years. So with the movie development in full swing, it would be time for a killer cast to bring this thing home. I mean, Mario at that time had the extremely recognizable voice played by Charles Martinet.
Super Mario, Luigi, ho ho, Wario, and Luigi.
So naturally he'd be reprising his role as
It's me, Mario.
During a Nintendo Direct in September 2021, Shigeru Miyamoto would reveal several of their casting choices for the Mario Brothers movie. The most shocking of the bunch being Chris Pratt.
He's so cool. Mario will be talking a lot in the movie.
There was mixed feelings from the fandom, and I'd argue overall there was Chris Pratt fatigue due to his dominance in blockbusters like Guardians of the Galaxy, the Lego Movie, and Jurassic World. But many others argued that they didn't want to hear Martinet's high-pitched Mario voice for an entire movie, but were also shocked to learn that a voice actor can indeed change their voice.
Over King Chuck, what brings you to the throat of the world?
Despite their response, the film production team supported their choice with confidence, with Horvath stating, quote, "For us, it made total sense. He's really good at playing a blue-collar hero with a ton of heart. For the way that Mario is characterized in our film, he's perfect for it." Other celebrities had been chosen for the main cast as well, with Charlie Day playing the role of Luigi, Anya Taylor-Joy as Princess Peach, Jack Black as Bowser, Keegan-Michael Key as Toad, and Seth Rogen as Donkey Kong. And I remember when seeing this, it was just refreshing to know Donkey Kong would be in the film at all. Charlie Day, I think, is one of the more welcome castings as Luigi, since he nailed that nervous energy pretty well, but as I'm finding out from researching this video, the directors had to pull that out of him. Originally, he was going to go with a cliche gangster New York accent that you'd hear in Goodfellas, until the directors told him it sounded too similar to those voices, to which he responded, "All right, I think you're wrong, but fine." So you'd have to record several of his lines in different ways until they found the Luigi they were looking for. Then there was Jack Black as Bowser, and I'll give credit where credit is due. He took what could have been a standard cartoon villain and made it pretty unforgettable. Whether it was the surprising hit song Peaches in the middle of the film, or his over-the-top press tour antics, the man knew exactly how to sell Bowser. The Peaches ballad was his idea, because of course it was. It's corny, but somehow it works. It had everyone singing it at least once after the movie was done, with the song cracking the Billboard Hot 100 after the movie was released. Anyway, the story and the plot itself is nothing groundbreaking, but it does the job, so spoilers for the movie. As I mentioned before, Mario and Luigi are plumbers in Brooklyn who stumble into the Mushroom Kingdom through a mysterious warp pipe. And Luigi gets captured by Bowser in the process, who's got some convoluted plan to marry Peach and blow up her kingdom with a giant bomber bill if she says no. So Mario teams up with Peach, trains on an obstacle course that hates him, and goes on a quest to save his brother. The plot hits all the beats you'd expect in a Mario movie, but it's the small details and the million Easter eggs that stand out. The Mushroom Kingdom alone is gorgeous and incredibly detailed. Illumination Studios Paris was behind this animation, and while they're known for their polished but safe style with minions, you know the vibe, Horvath and Jelinek aimed for a balance between stylized fun and grounded realism, and it just works. They explain that characters keep consistent volume and proportion so they don't feel overly stretchy. But in this movie, they emote enough to add a sense of animation that you don't typically see in the games. And the action sequences hit that blockbuster energy that they were going for. So for what it's worth, Chris Pratt isn't amazing in this film, but I've said before in previous videos that he's decent enough to where I don't really notice him after a while. And I'm more engaged in the world that they set out to build in this movie, much like Mario being your medium to interact with the world around him in each game. And there are some pretty interesting lore changes between the games and movies, like Peach not originally being royalty. She ends up being a human warp pipe orphan raised by toads, which, sure, I guess that tracks, but what does that mean for the games? You guys think some of this will carry over to Mario's next big adventure? I could totally do a separate video unpacking these changes and the whole movie itself. Anyway, Mario's whole arc is about proving himself, to Peach, to Donkey Kong, and even to his dad, who spends the first act roasting his plumbing career. Yeah, they have a dad in this movie and a whole ass family to go along with him. Papa Mario here is voiced by Charles Martinet, the guy people said couldn't hold down a whole movie by himself.
And the worst part? You're bringing your brother down with you.
But fun fact, Papa Mario was based on older designs of Mario given to the design team by Nintendo. But either way, the family's role is pretty minimal. So as Mario travels throughout the Mushroom Kingdom, the plot is straightforward, but there are a few solid moments that shine. Like Mario flailing his way to victory against Donkey Kong in a cat suit, which I was originally hoping would be toward the beginning of the film, taking place at a construction site in New York, but that's why I'm not a writer. One standout moment in the film though is the Rainbow Road sequence. Apparently it was the most technically challenging part of the movie, and you can see why. Horvath had said, quote, The entire road is not like a solid element like a street that has asphalt surface or something. It's actually a visual effect because it's always glowing and shimmering, and there's particle effects on it. So every single shot that's in the Rainbow Road had to go through the visual effects department, which is super expensive and time consuming. So yeah, we were super ambitious with that whole sequence. This is indeed one of my favorite parts of the movie, and it looks spectacular. No snarky line for this part, it's great. God damn! And I do want to take a second to talk about the Kongs, because their depiction is pretty interesting as well. In the games, Donkey Kong is from Donkey Kong Island, and due to Rare rebooting the series to make the smash hit Super Nintendo title Donkey Kong Country in 1994, there's a lot of debatable lore surrounding the Kongs. In the games, Cranky Kong is named as the original Donkey Kong that faced off with Mario or Jumpman in the original game, moving aside for his grandson Donkey Kong to take his place as the head of Donkey Kong Island. I'm simplifying it a bit, but I have plenty of DK videos for you to watch if you want to dive deeper. This movie not only redesigns Donkey Kong to look a little bit more like his original design, but Cranky exists still, but now claims Donkey Kong is his son. They also call their realm the Jungle Kingdom, an adjacent area to the Mushroom Kingdom in this universe. Which brings me to the recent Mario Kart 9 footage released in the Switch 2 reveal. It seems Nintendo is reclaiming DK's original design, which has me curious as to where they're taking the franchise, and if they're aligning these characters with their movie counterparts. I'm against that idea, but this is indeed a redesigned DK, so it's promising that a new game is to follow. Or maybe this is just Donkey Kong Jr. and we haven't seen him in decades. We'll see. The Super Mario Bros. Movie was a phenomenon. It shattered expectations, grossing over $1.35 billion worldwide, making it not only the highest grossing video game adaptation of all time, but also one of the top animated films in history. Critics and audiences alike were drawn to its charm, humor, and faithful nods to decades of Mario and Nintendo lore. It was an event, with families, longtime fans, and newcomers packing theaters worldwide. Of course, the film has its detractors, but personally, I took it for what it is, a faithful adaptation of the Mario series, existing in its own little universe, and that was good enough for me. But perhaps more notably, with Detective Pikachu, Sonic the Hedgehog, and the Super Mario Bros. Movie all kicking ass at the box office in rapid succession, it cemented what many originally thought to be cursed. Video game adaptations can be both commercially successful and made for the fans. As for Nintendo, the success of the film had them immediately jumping into an idea for a sequel alongside Illumination, the ending teasing that Yoshi would be in a more substantial role in the plot of the next film. The possibilities are endless. Could we see Daisy or Rosalina join the roster? A Luigi's Mansion movie? In March 2024, Miyamoto and Meledandri would officially announce a sequel to the film, aiming for an April 2026 release date. And there are rumors circulating shortly after the release of the movie that a Donkey Kong spin-off had already been considered, with Seth Rogen expressing interest to reprise his role. But most importantly, Nintendo is now ready to move forward in producing more films based off of other intellectual properties. And the first to follow Mario is The Legend of Zelda, with Miyamoto announcing in November 2023 that he is working with, you guessed it, Avi Arad on a live-action Legend of Zelda film directed by Wes Ball, known for the Maze Runner films and Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. And so our behind-the-scenes story comes full circle. Pandora's box has been opened and Nintendo is going full speed ahead with their franchises coming to the big screen. So what would you all like to see be announced next? My personal pick would be Metroid. You all let me know in the comments below.